fasten your seatbelts for a lot of Signalgate today. Let's start off with, as we always do, with our weekly recap from Meet the Depressed.
Good Sunday morning. President Trump is standing by his national security team as the fallout intensifies after top officials mistakenly shared attack plans for U.S. military strikes in Yemen on the Signal messaging app with a journalist. In an exclusive phone interview on Saturday, the president told me, quote, "I don't fire people because of fake news and because of witch hunts." Mr. Trump said he still has confidence in Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz.
So it's nice to know that he doesn't fire people because of witch hunts, but he does, of course, engage in witch hunts himself. Maybe that's why he likes to be able to take over that lane himself. Witch hunts and attacks on free speech. So shout out to Trump for overseeing the kidnapping of people here in this country who have legal rights that are being violated.
Because they criticized the Israeli government.
Right,
and
exactly.
that's why they're being the target of the witch hunt.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't think this is a witch hunt against Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz, as we're going to get into, screwed up big time by adding Jeffrey Goldberg to a group chat about bombing Yemen. And then he lied about it. And we're going to see how he's lied about it shortly. But I don't think that's actually a witch hunt. And the problem Democrats have is that given they have cried wolf so many times before on all these fake national security scandals, like when, for example, they framed Trump as a Russian asset, they do have less ground now to complain. People aren't listening, I think, the way they might have normally otherwise had. If Democrats hadn't spent so much capital free-mongering by Trump being controlled by Vladimir Putin. I mean, that didn't work out so well. So people might be a little bit tired of these like national security scandals, but this one actually was a genuine screw up by the Trump team. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, back to Meet the Depressed.
Just hours ago, President Trump called me to tell me he is, quote, pissed off with Russia's President Putin and threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russia's oil. Quote, "If Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and if I think it was Russia's fault, which it might not be, but if I think it was Russia's fault, I am going to put secondary tariffs on all oil coming out of Russia."
What a weird comment. It might not be Russia's fault, but if I think it's Russia's fault, then that's enough for me to take action. It's like, geez, that's some weird disciplinary standards. If I have the impression in here, this is what matters in here, it's your fault. Right. You're in trouble, mister.
Yeah, it's really, I think he probably meant if it turns out they are, and I don't know if they are right now, but what you just said, Aaron, is also how I saw it at first. And it's an example of how undisciplined he is in his messaging and how careless. And, because you don't really want to say something that will give the impression that you're going to punish Russia, regardless of whether it's done it. But you know what? I like the way he has, I feel like Welker is kind of like his therapist. He called her up. Sounds like he needed an emergency session. He told her about how he was feeling. He was pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was working through some stuff.
By the way, he's already backing off this threat. On Air Force One last night, he already started walking that back. And the thing is, I just don't see him following through on imposing secondary sanctions on Russian energy because, first of all, the U.S. has already cut itself off from Venezuelan energy because we're trying to overthrow the government there. And Trump is a big part of that this was obviously his policy of trying to have a coup in Venezuela. So Venezuelan oil is out. And so therefore, if you now impose secondary sanctions on Russian energy, by which that means, by the way, if someone else buys energy from Russia, that means they get sanctions on them. It's like you're in trouble if you do business with this other country, and we're going to punish you for it. It's the most insane policy, but yet that's the policy we have when it comes to Venezuela. If China buys energy from Venezuela, China gets hit with a penalty from us, as if we have the right to penalize people if they engage in transactions that we don't like with bad guy countries that we don't like. But there's no way Trump will fall through with this because then energy prices will go through the roof. And given that Trump campaigned on lowering costs, and of course he's done absolutely nothing toward that promise, I do not see him taking the additional step of making prices even worse after already doing nothing to lowering them.
Right. He always likes to leave all options on the table. And a lot of his defenders use that. Hexet said something about him that he had like strategic instability or no, strategic inconsistency, something like that. So, yeah, keeps people guessing. And that's why you should make sure your therapist is not a journalist, because they don't have the confidentiality requirement.
Trump said 25% tariffs on Russian oil could happen any moment and told me he plans to speak with President Putin this week. The president told me, quote, I was very angry, pissed off when Putin started getting into Zelensky.
See, sorry, again, he's sharing his feelings. He's telling his therapist, I was very angry, pissed off,
to put secondary tariffs on all oil coming out of Russia. Mr. Trump said 25% tariffs on Russian oil could happen any moment and told me he plans to speak with President Putin this week. The president told me, quote, I was very angry, pissed off when Putin started getting into Zelensky's credibility and started talking about new leadership in Ukraine. Are
you kidding me? Just a few weeks ago, Trump called Zelensky a dictator, said he has really low approval ratings, and that there should be new elections inside of Ukraine. So Putin does the same thing, and now Trump's offended on Zelensky's behalf when he's repeatedly insulted Zelensky. I don't think Putin called Zelensky a dictator. I mean, maybe he did, but Trump certainly did. So why is he so sensitive now about Putin casting doubt on his legitimacy? That's very inconsistent.
Yeah, well, that strategic unpredictability / also maybe he feels like now he wants to be the toughest on Zelensky, and now he's going to have to heighten it. And Putin hasn't left him a lot of room now.
Yeah, he wants the monopoly on calling Zelensky names. Like, that's not Putin's lane. Okay, stay in your lane, Putin. Yeah. Only I get to call Zelensky names and cast doubt on his credibility. And by the way, Trump doing that to Zelensky, like calling him names and then having that argument with him in the Oval Office, that apparently helped Zelensky's approval rating inside of Ukraine. People rallied around Zelensky after that
because he looked like he was so bullied.
Yeah.
Nobody puts Zelensky in a corner. Except Trump.
Iran, the president said he's also considering secondary tariffs if Iran doesn't agree to a nuclear deal. Quote, if they don't make a deal, there will be bombing, and it will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before.
I'm sorry. Isn't that maybe worthy of more time here on Meet the Press? The president of the U.S. just openly threatening to bomb Iran, the likes of which they have never seen before. I mean, that's a really big deal. And by the way, wasn't this guy also supposed to be the president of peace, Donald Trump? He campaigned about being a peacemaker, rejecting the warmongering of the Democrats. Now he's just casually threatening to bomb Iran.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard called him like the president of peace right after he, killed a bunch of people in Yemen, and right after he's obviously funding this genocide and arming this genocide in Palestine. So I think that, he likes to say that his agenda or his program is peace through strength. I think it's peace through bombing.
Peace through bombing.
Yeah.
Markets tumbled on Friday, and with consumer confidence falling, the president also told me he's not backing down on his tariff plans.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
And the president telling me tariffs are, quote, absolutely permanent. And on fears of foreign automakers raising prices, quote, I couldn't care less if they raise prices because people are going to start buying American-made cars. And on his vow to annex Greenland.
Okay, all right. So sorry if you want to buy a vehicle that's not made in America because now the price is going to be raised, and the president couldn't care less. So, right. Well, that's one way to promote American manufacturing is just make other cars unaffordable for people. Right.
I mean, again, he's really being open about his feelings. I couldn't care less. And, of course, this has the potential to benefit the great Elon Musk with Tesla cars.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's a, I guess, a nice side bonus of all this, that at least Elon Musk will get to make some more money if this happens. Although I think he also relies on the on the Chinese market too for his batteries. So who knows? But certainly, Elon Musk has other priorities right now. He's just in Wisconsin trying to buy an election for the state Supreme Court, basically bribing people to go out and vote for the judge he wants. So Elon Musk has other things on his mind.
Yeah, but of course, this helps fund his bribery.
Sure.
The more Tesla sales there are,
Yeah. And this comes after Trump, of course, did an advertisement for Tesla at the White House. Right. And his Commerce Secretary encouraged people to buy Tesla stock. Right. So,
covered that,
And the president saying, quote, "I never take military force off the table, but I think there's a good possibility that we could do it without military force."
Okay, well, that's reassuring. Good.
Yeah.
Good. There's a good possibility we're not going to engage in World War III. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Being very, very cautious.